Welcome back to His Fire for Me. I'm Jesse and I'm here with my wife Kim, and today is another Frugal Friday. We hope that you've been enjoying these Frugal Fridays as we've had a good time going through this book, The Art of Frugal Hedonism. If you haven't seen our videos up to this point, make sure you check this one out, and if you enjoy it, go back and watch the rest of the series, as I hope that they're just as good as this one. Let's get into it. We're on chapter 3 this week, and it's a bit of a short one, so it shouldn't take us too long.
All right. Chapter 3 of The Art of Frugal Hedonism by Annie Razor Rowland with Adam Grubb. Chapter 3 is titled, Be Materialistic. But what? You splutter indignantly upon reading the title of this tip. Surely anti-materialism is the very cornerstone of buying less. Upping the esteem in which you hold consumables may indeed sound an odd path to frugality, but bear with us here. Even if you're currently living a nomadic life out of a small backpack, you probably own a selection of things that help you cook, eat, bathe, sleep, work, and play. And if you'd like to avoid the constant consumption involved in replacing those things, you'll want to recognize their value, maintain them, and get things that are well made enough in the first place that they will last and are fixable. Obvious, huh? But also no longer standard modus operandi. Our culture actually seems to have become a little averse to looking after things. Care of objects smacks of uptightness. It's unfashionable. Have you ever felt somehow uncool for reminding a friend to wipe the blades of the pruning shears you've lent them with an oily rag after use? Or coy about mentioning to your housemate that turning the blender off before the motor begins to overheat will make it last longer? With such an abundance of cheap things to replace broken cheap things, many of us have lost the most basic knowledge of how to care for them, and instead have almost fetishized the pleasure of not bothering. As a culture, we have watched a lot of James Bond movies where the good guys blow up luxury cars and phones in the line of duty, and it seems de rigueur to not care. There is a societal suggestion that demonstrating how fun we are involves an I've got more important things to do with my time carelessness about the tawdrier aspects of material things, like looking after them. Your authors think it's a bit lame. Here's a suggestion. Perhaps after you've watched that James Bond movie, balance it out by watching The Gods Must Be Crazy, which makes you feel amazed that something as beautiful and useful as a Coke bottle exists at all. Look at the slightly daggy chair in your kitchen table and be gobsmacked by the fact that men collected sap oozing from subtropical trees to make the rubber for the nubs on its legs. Huge machines pulled the metal for its frame out of the depths of the earth and heated it until it glowed so as to extrude it into the right shape. Ancient oil was whipped into a frenzy with pigments and catalysts until it became that molded plastic seat. Do the same thinking to the clock on your wall, the bread on your shelf, and the cheesecake in your fridge. Be dazzled that you even have all this stuff with its stupefying lineage of effort and resources. Be reverential, be grateful, then look after it. The practice is sure to come back into fashion sooner or later anyway. So being materialistic seems counterintuitive.
It does, yes. I was a little shocked by the title when I first read it, for sure. And coming from a book about frugalism and all that, it didn't seem like something, but I think they've got some good points there. I think we have become a very disposable society, and we think it's often, or in a lot of cases, it's often cheaper and easier just to toss something instead of repair it. So what are some items that you can think of that we've bought that we might have spent a little more on rather than going through 3 or 4 of them?
There's a few items that we've purchased that I've always thought were kind of a luxury, but now that we have them, they feel like something that's really useful and something that I take really good care of. The first thing that comes to mind is our Vitamix blender.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, we were at the fair one year and we were walking through that whole commercial consumerism plaza where you can get all the samples and see all the gadgets.
Love that section.
Yeah. And we actually saw someone doing a demonstration of a Vitamix, and they were making a smoothie, and we had a blender at home and we made smoothies, and the smoothie was so smooth and creamy and wonderful. And so it was kind of an impulse purchase. I don't think we really planned to go. We had heard of Vitamix before, but we hadn't really like planned to buy one. But then when we did buy it, it's transformed my cooking abilities. I make a lot of cashew-based cream sauces, smoothies, of course, but just sauces, soups. I mean, we used it twice for something we made last night.
Yeah.
The same meal, we used it 2 different ways.
Yeah.
So
I think while yes, it could have ended up being an impulse purchase, I think it actually was probably a fairly thought out purchase. And we're pretty good about our large money purchases of not just going out and spending that money and not thinking it over a little bit. And, while, yeah, we didn't go back to the fair the next day or something, we didn't buy it right then. We walked the fair and thought about it throughout the day and stuff like that. But you were very into smoothies and you were making smoothies on a daily basis. And I could tell, knowing how things worked, that based on the effort it took our current blender to make these smoothies, it was going to get replaced eventually at some point. And I could see that this Vitamix was something that was made very well and made to hold up. We also knew others who had the Vitamix.
True.
And we had some good feedback, and we knew somebody who actually had this Vitamix, not just one of them, but they had a few of them over a long period of time, and it hadn't just worn out quickly, but they used it and enjoyed it so much that they bought another one, if not multiple. So we did know their track record too. So while it was a very expensive purchase, I think it was a thought out purchase, and I think it was a case where we were materialistic in a good way. I think for us, for our needs. I don't think everybody's going to find a need for a Vitamix, though.
Right.
So I think it definitely needs to make sure it fits into your lifestyle.
But I think, too, when you're making maybe bigger purchases that you're going to have for a while and you take care of them, it's just this general, taking care of your things that this chapter seems to really speak to. I know for the Vitamix, we do take good care of it. We use it a lot and we use it heavily, but we do take good care of it. But there's other things. Just recently, we had a hose nozzle that was leaking, and I had another hose nozzle that was leaking, but they seemed to be leaking from different spots. And so I thought, I have a little bit of time. I would love to not go just throw both of these away and buy a new hose nozzle. And so I took them both apart to kind of see how they worked and what their functioning was. And of course, I asked for Jesse's help because he's so good at fixing and fiddling with things. And unfortunately, this doesn't have a happy ending where we took the two hose nozzles and put them together and had a functioning hose nozzle. But I did like getting into that mindset of how can I take this thing that's broken and try and fix it, or try and repurpose it, or try and combine it with something else to make something useful. And I think that's part of this point, is to think of the things that you have and the impact that they've had on the environment and the money that they've cost you and the impact that they've had on your life, and try and find a way to care for them or fix them before you end up having to dispose of them and get a new one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think maybe another thing to think of in the same line of thinking is how can you get something as good of quality or nearly as good a quality, but maybe one model older, right? So you might not get the brand new Vitamix, but you get one that somebody's not using and you get a used one. Or something that I think of that is very often oversold is your cell phone. Cell phones come out at least once a year with a new model, and a lot of people will upgrade to that next model that next year.
Yeah.
And their phone still works. It doesn't need to be upgraded every single year, and it's not cheap to upgrade them. And so rather than upgrading every single year, maybe you wait a couple years to upgrade it. And then when you finally do upgrade, you upgrade to 1 year older than the brand new one. And you make sure that it's going to be a good quality phone. It's had a good, at least a year of time out, to see if there's going to be any major problems with it. And then you can know that it's a quality phone that's going to last, and it's going to get you through the majority of what, current day's usage of a cell phone are. And you try and make the one you have last as long as it can, and utilize those things that we do have as long as we can. So
yeah, that's a really good point.
Be materialistic in the things that you buy. Buy good stuff, and then use them to their full extent. I think is the other part is you can't just buy stuff and then replace it before it's worn out, or the point of repairing and buying a good thing in the first place is to use it to its full extent.
Absolutely.
So I think that's
when
a good point
you
there.
bring up cell phones, I was just talking to one of my friends, and her phone's been on the fritz for a while, and she's just kind of lumping along with it. And I said, it might be time to get a new phone. And she said, yeah, I'm just waiting. I'm probably going to buy a used one or a repurposed one. And she mentioned how a lot of technology has precious metals that are mined from the environment using slave labor. And so, of course, I realized that, yes, that's absolutely true. And I think that brings up something that this book speaks to quite a bit, where if you are a thoughtful consumer, whether it be consuming food products or consuming electronics or whatever you need to make your life go, you can kind of pair that thoughtful consumerism or frugal hedonism with being a better steward of the environment and resources. And so a lot of the principles that we'll see outlined in this book actually go hand in hand with being a little bit kinder to the environment and to other humans as well. So I do think, if you have a phone, use it to its full potential. Make sure you have a good case on it that makes it so you don't drop it and break it and et cetera, which I'm prone to do. And then when it's time to upgrade, if you can find one that's been refurbished or find one that someone else is selling that you can use very happily, do so.
Yeah, I think that point you just made about a case, I've seen a lot of people with broken cell phones, and just spending that little extra money, being materialistic and spending that extra money to buy something that's going to make that item last that much longer is a good use of your money, because you're not going to be replacing that item that much quicker. So, and then being responsible and not, willy-nilly with your phone and letting it, fly across the room, or setting it on top of your car where you're going to smash it in the back of the
Which I've done numerous
trunk.
times. Not just once, but like literally 5 times probably.
Yeah, it's got to be a bad design to the car, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be it. So
I don't think I've done that in the last 2 years though. Yeah.
So, but anyways, taking good care of your stuff, I think, is a very good point. Buying good stuff that you can use for a long time is very valuable. So, what are some of the things that you guys buy or have bought that have lasted you a long time, that you specifically spent a little extra on, but knew that it was going to last you a long time? I'd be interested to hear kind of what those items might be for you.
I'd also be interested to hear if you've had any really cool successes with fixing something or repurposing something that maybe was on its way out, but once it's lived its natural life, you found a new way of using it, or you found a way to pass it along to someone else, or just different creative ways of having something live a little bit longer.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be cool. So let us know what you thought of this video. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it, and leave their comments below. And we will see you in next week's Frugal Friday. Hope you have a good weekend.